Okay. All right, you guys. So hi, Stacy, and hi, Destiny.
Hi.
Hi.
And I'm really excited to have you guys with me today because you guys have been with me quite a while now.
Hmm.
Um, and and you, first of all, tell us your names. Tell us where you're from, and how did you connect with me? And Stacey, we may not even remember, but just tell everybody kind of how you connected with me in the first place.
I'm Stacy and my daughter is Destiny. She is 11 years old and will be competing level 7 this year. And man, you're right. I feel like I connected with you by on I feel like it was on Facebook, just kind of, we were going through some struggles and I was kind of searching for different outlets, and a particular Facebook group, which I don't even necessarily remember, mentioned, you in the comments, and there was a lot of agreement with it. So I said, okay, I have to check her out. I have to see about this. And I feel like that's how we initially connected.
Because Destiny, how long have I been seeing you off and on? Like I'm trying to think, because what level are you training this year?
Level 7.
And when did we start? What level were you in when we started? Do you remember?
Maybe like
I
4?
feel like 4.
Level 4?
Yeah, like quite a couple years ago, right? And I think what's really, and you guys can maybe speak to this better than I can, but this work is typically I'm not going to see people until there's a problem,
Right.
you know, until somebody can't do a skill, or if there's something, what I call in their A circle, preventing them from them being able to do what they know they can do. And
Right.
I think, do you remember back in the day why you initially came to me? Destiny, do you even remember?
I would have like problems that I wouldn't tell like my parents, and I would just like keep it in, and it would like not feel good. And then my mom found you, and then every time I talk to you, you make me feel better.
Well, that's great. And that's really good for you because isn't it interesting that you didn't know that you could talk to your mom or talk to the coaches in a way that would have been helpful back then?
Yeah.
Because you're right, you were bottling it up. You thought, well, I don't know what you thought. Do you know what you thought back then?
No.
You just didn't know that there was another way.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know you could communicate or that there wasn't anything wrong with you. You kind of like to do things the right way right now, don't you?
Yeah.
And I love working with gymnasts because they do want to do their skills perfectly and the right way. But it's also like they don't know that they can give themselves permission to not be perfect so that they can do better over time. And okay, so Destiny, can you give, or and Stacy too, can you guys give maybe a situation that you were experiencing that you were able to manage better, or you were able to take care of yourself in a different way? Do you remember a situation that we've been working on?
I mean, yeah, even recently in the gym with you, right?
Yeah.
Coming off of the hurricane here, because we're in Orlando, or right outside of Orlando. So we just went through Ian, and a few days outside of the gym, a lot of places lost power and different things. So when she went back, like before Ian, she was, coming home, not complaining, gym was fine, doing what she needed to do. Then right after Ian, it was, a lot of tears, a lot of, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, just a lot of stress, just came out of the blue. So then we went into a session and kind of got reminded of the things that we had been learning over the years anyway, and how to apply those techniques. And that was pretty recent. That was only in the last couple of weeks or so, honestly.
And I think that's so important for people to know that gymnasts, when they a lot of times when a gymnast has a weekend off, it's like they have to go in on Monday, and it can be very stressful for them, because it's almost like if they're not consistently doing their skills, they don't know that they go into the doing strategy and they just want to do it, but then it doesn't work, and they get disconnected, and they don't know that they can, like Destiny didn't know you could go back into the learning strategy and to think about what you were doing. And that is so common, right? Or to get like things that get in their A circle because of the situation, something, the pandemic, and all the different things that they were dealing with. There's a lot of things that get between their mind and their body mentally that then they don't know what to do about. And that's a great example of that. And then Destiny, do you remember what helped you after that? Do you remember at all what you did differently to support yourself better?
I mean, I've been using like all the strategies that you've been like teaching me, and it's been helping me a lot. Yeah.
And Destiny, I know that with a lot of gymnasts, we can get our coaches in our A circle, right? And it's not so much about the coach, but it's more about how the gymnast is perceiving that coach. I mean, I always tease my daughter now, she still has her coaches in her A circle. And I literally use it to my advantage now. I'll be like, if you don't get good grades, your coaches are going to be upset. And she'll be like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like I don't even have to say anything, because she'll be like, I remember last year, she was a junior in college. She's like, if I don't go to school, if I don't go to my class, my coaches are going to be mad at me. Right? So gymnasts tend to have their coaches in their A circle from a very early age. And it's not necessarily good or bad, but sometimes we can perceive the coaches. I remember, and you can tell me if this is okay to talk about, because you had the coaches in your A circle and you felt like you needed to make them happy. Like it was your job to make them happy and, do what they're asking of you for their kind of how they perceived you. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah.
And then it was hard because obviously we can't control anybody. We don't know how they're gonna perceive us. But to have that, I feel for gymnasts that take that responsibility on. The coaches don't necessarily mean for you to do that, but that's just a part of what happens a lot of times.
Absolutely.
And then to be able to know, Destiny, and I think recently you've been able to go, oh, I don't have to be in charge of that. That isn't my job. I just need to focus on my skills, because they just want me to do my skills. They just want me to, we have the same goal beyond the goal. We all want us to do our skills, but not having to take on that responsibility that it's your job to not make them happy, but not upset them. Right? And so knowing that, I think is such a good, just a good thing that gymnasts have to sometimes go through, and it doesn't feel good. It's not comfortable all the time, but moving through that can be really helpful to come out of it in a way that your job is just to think about your skills, and that's it. That can solve a lot of problems.
Yeah. And I think something else we learned is that, yes, there'll be lots of ups and downs, and yes, you learn strategies to get through a lot of the tough times, but it doesn't mean that another tough time won't come around, and you have to kind of be reminded of the strategies again, just because it gets comfortable when it gets comfortable, and then then it's like I don't know, almost like a whirlwind when it starts happening that, oh, I can't get this skill right, or I took a day off and now I can't get it. Oh my gosh, what's going on? And it's that constant reminder till it's just, like breathing, honestly, until you just realize what to do every time. So even, as the mom, as the adult, I still learn from these sessions, and I'm learning, and I apply them to my regular daily life, and I find absolute benefit in doing that. Even when I, am trying to tell her different things like, do your best, try, and the goal beyond the goal, then I have to remind myself of the same things I'm telling her. The same exact things. I'm like, okay, I can't be stressed about this. I got to remember my other goals. I got to think about this too. And all those same things that I'm trying to, you know, make sure she gets, I'm reminded of them, and I got to make sure I get them too, because they apply to everything, not just gymnastics.
I remember you guys went on a vacation recently, and you said to me, like, would I have liked to not go on what was it, like the ropes?
Oh,
The,
yeah, I did. I was like, I didn't want to jump off of a waterfall. I go on, a ropes course. I didn't want to go horseback riding on the side of a volcano. I did not want to do that. But I was telling the kids, oh, you only got one life to live. You guys, you got to do this. You're in Costa Rica. Go for it. Yeah. And then, Debbie, who, yeah, she's a gymnast, but she's not the typical gymnast, because she has had a lot of fears early on. She's not the type that was like, oh, let me just jump off this mailbox, or let me just do this, fearless, that you hear a lot of gymnasts have that personality type. That is not her. So she didn't want to do any of those things on the vacation either. But I was like, no, come on, you got to push past your fears. You got to do all this and you got to do all that. And then she asked me, okay, so you're signing up too, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. In my mind, I was like, man, I opened up a can of worms. But, it's like you gotta walk the walk. You're preaching it to them. You got to be able to do it too. So, yeah, I did everything, hesitantly at first, but afterwards, after you do it, it is fun to just get past that fear. So I get that more now, because I never did gymnastics. I don't understand doing a sport that has so many fears in it. I don't get that, because I never had that experience. But just in life in general, there are fears, and you do have to be able to get past them to find success. So yeah, on that trip, it did push us all as a family past our comfort zone. Absolutely. And it was worth it. Absolutely.
and Destiny is so cute. She's like nodding her head, like, yeah, I asked my mom,
You're
well,
gonna do it too.
what are you going to do? And I experienced the same thing, Stacy. And it's like, there are times I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to pull my big girl pants up and do what I have to do, because like with these strategies though, it provides the step-by-step process, goal
Mm-hmm.
beyond the goal, and the learning strategy. And I'm so grateful for them, because sometimes when Olivia said to me, I'm not going back to Ball State, I was like, what do I do? I don't even know anything about compliance and the transfer portal and what you have to do, and what are the options. And I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, like, why can't you just stay there one more year?
Yeah, why can't you? Totally. And I had that conversation. I'm like, really? And I texted her coach here in Minnesota, and I said, Sammy, what am I gonna do? And she's like, I'm not gonna let her down. I was like, oh my gosh, she's pulling up her big girl pants. I gotta pull up my big girl pants. But you're right. It was like I have that experience to offer other people.
Mm-hmm.
I learn from you guys every week whenever I see you guys. And then I can turn it around and use that in my own life and for my kids and for my other clients. And I'm so grateful for that, because once you are at least connected, then whatever you need to do just as part of it, versus like jumping off a cliff each time.
Mm-hmm.
And Destiny, I think you've experienced that too. You and I can I can understand your unconscious mind. As soon as we get on, it's like your unconscious mind knows what to talk to me about. It knows what you need. And you guys do consistent work with me, which
Mm-hmm.
is different than people just coming with a problem. And I think that was hard for Destiny. You didn't want to see me all the time.
No, at first it was like pulling teeth.
Yeah,
She
she
was
would cry
talk
to
about
see me.
fine. She was just wanting to keep everything in until it exploded. That was her way of wanting to deal with it.
Well, she was so hard on herself. How many moms can relate to their gymnast being so hard on themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And Destiny was, and still is, but she's been able to manage those ideas or those expectations differently. It doesn't mean that you don't have high expectations of yourself, right,
Right.
Destiny? It's like we all want to have high expectations, but we don't want that in our A circle.
No.
We don't
No.
need that in our A circle to affect us in a negative way while we're doing our skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm, it is interesting, this process, but, and also Destiny, you always felt like when you were seeing me, it was because there was a problem
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, I think. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, we're just layering the success. Because what happens with gymnasts too is there's a lot of transitions, right? They go from routines in the summer or skills to then putting those skills into routines. And that can be mentally challenging for some gymnasts. And then
Mm-hmm.
going from routines to competition, there's a lot of pressure or a lot of different things that can affect a gymnast to go into competition season. And
Mm-hmm.
the coaches can become pretty reactive nowadays,
Yep.
and that can affect them.
Yep.
Yes.
And Stace, I feel like you really do such a good job at managing her, not taking on her. If she comes home with an issue, you're not jumping in her A circle to fix it. It doesn't mean that you don't want to or you haven't tried in the past. But
Right.
I feel like you do a really good balancing act with the coaches and allowing them to say things about what she's doing and not taking it personal. Can you just explain a little bit of how you balance that?
Well, one, I have to say that I also have a level 1 gymnast that just started competing this year. So it was like a reality check, seeing how it is the beginning levels again, because it had been a while, and then seeing, at the when you start getting into the higher levels a little bit, and just the differences in the parents, the differences in the kids, and the difference how it feels at a competition. It's just very different. And then it was, also just, if I go in to pick her up and a few minutes early, I hear the parents and how they're talking and the pressure that they put on themselves. I'd been that parent at some time or another too, where you just kind of get into it so much. You don't even know why. You're just like, you just get into, why is the coach doing it this way? Why are they doing it this way? Oh my gosh, she's upset out there. Oh my, and it's just so much. And it just becomes easier, honestly, to not be at practice. So, honestly, I just don't go to practice at all, unless, I have a little one there and I might have to be there a little while because their schedules, the way they overlap. But then I find myself just looking at the little one. I don't even look at the, Destiny anymore at practice, because I've learned that watching the process when you're on the outside looking in is very painful, very hard, and you just don't understand what's going on the other side of that glass. It's hard to understand when your coach has to push them past where they think they can do to get the success that everybody wants them to get. It's hard to watch change. It's hard to watch them change and grow, because that's what's happening out there. And it's hard to watch it as a parent. Sometimes you want to go into mama bear mode and you want to say and do and judge. And when your kid gets out, if they're stuck on the beam and they just can't go because of fears or anxiety or whatever else is going on that day, then, and the coaches are complaining, and then you're wondering, you were able to do it last week, now you can't do it this week. And you just find out over time, it's just very counterproductive. It's counterproductive as just a human being, as a parent, and the stress that it causes you. It's counterproductive to your child, your gymnast, and it's not helping the situation. So I've just learned that you just have to, if you're at a gym that you trust what's going on, you have to let the coaches do what they do, and you have to do what you do as a parent, period. And you're not a coach. I'm not a coach. And even if you have a background in it, you're not their coach now. So you gotta I've learned to just be the parent. If she needs to vent, let her vent. If she doesn't want to talk about it, we're not going to talk about it. If the coaches come up to me and want to have a conversation about something that went on, then we can have that. And if it needs further discussion, we can go there. But, as far as me trying to be a coach or trying to act like I understand really truly what's going on, no, no, it's just better to not. And your daughter, your son, I mean, yeah, the coaches are, can be constantly in their A circle, but you know what? The parents are too, big time, maybe even more. And when you're trying to please so many different people, it's just hard. It's harder on them. They kind of need to be able to get that pressure off them once they leave the gym, that they're there for so many hours, and just know that, no matter what, I know I'm safe. Like, I know as parents, we think, oh, they should know. They know I'm there. They're safe. No, but they need to see it in your actions, and they need to hear it in your words. They need to just know that once I'm outside the gym, I don't have to even worry about this for now till tomorrow again.
And I think what Destiny said in the beginning is, she used to worry about what you would think and what you were going to say and how you were going to see her because of a situation. And you're not that mom that is going to do that. And so she perceived you in a way that really wasn't necessarily accurate. And that happens all the time.
All the time. And I know parents, and I mean, there's no parent in there that doesn't love and adore their kid. That's not, what I'm saying. More of like, let them see in your actions and in your words and in the conversations that they hear with the other parents that, like, you just, no matter what happens in that gym, like, they know they're safe with the parent. They're not going to have to deal with, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you go? What's the problem? It's just hard when you have so much pressure at the gym for so many hours. And then the car ride home, it's more pressure trying to explain what you did or didn't do in the gym. And then once you're home, you're trying to explain and feel, even if you're not explaining, you just feel like you feel the tension, you feel the pressure, if you feel like you disappointed your parents. And when you're really just probably dealing with the fact that, you were out of the gym for a day or two, so you feel a little bit off and you just need to, apply the doing or the thinking strategy. So there's just different things that, as parents, we just don't know. Like, even if we were former gymnasts, we were probably former gymnasts 20 years ago. And it's just different now. It is different because I know I've talked to the coaches that were former gymnasts, and they struggle with understanding, oh, the generation is so different. Why can't they? I could just miss. I never did a birthday. I never did a holiday. I never did this. And I never had any fears. And it was just different back then. It was the different way. Coaches were different, different kids were different. It's just different. So I think everybody just kind of needs to understand that, as guess as parents, I just found for, me, and even the other parents I talk to, the best way is just to, back off and just focus on being the parent.
Yeah. And I think it's not easy because you're right. When your athlete and your daughter has an issue where they're crying every day, right? Or they cannot do what they know they can do. It is hard for parents to not, question everything, and I think it's just so valuable for you to not see your child, even if they have an issue. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. It doesn't mean that it's their fault or they're broken or they need to be fixed. And I think that really helped me to kind of go, if Olivia comes home and she's like, oh my God, my back hurts, I might go into, oh my God, do you need an MRI? Is it broken again? She'll be like, I'm just venting, Mom. I'm like, oh, that is so great. We have to just keep asking, are you venting or do I need to do something? Do you need me in your A circle? Do you need me what do you need me to do? I just need to, be okay here. And I think that can be really valuable for parents to allow that, because the more that we allow our kids to work through those problems, at the root of every problem lies the solution.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to find their own solution. And then you won't have to worry about that anymore. And they'll have a solution for that situation.
Yes, absolutely. And the solution, because I know there's going to be parents that are like, I have to advocate for my child. I have to make sure the coaches aren't doing this and doing that. And, you all have to be advocates for your child. And you do have to make sure your kids are in a safe situation. So I'm just referring to when you trust the gym that you're at and you trust the coaches, when there's that trust, when you see your kid crying at practice, because I don't care who you are, you're going to eventually see your kid crying at practice, or they're going to come home crying at some point in their career. It's going to happen. It's not always because they're being attacked. It's sometimes they just kind of need different tools on how to manage the situation. And because the situation probably isn't going to change, the coaches typically, in my experience, don't change. The way the gym's culture doesn't necessarily change. And it's just tools that these kids have to learn in life anyway to be okay, honestly. Whether it's gymnastics or any other sport, or just their career, dealing with people in general, they're going to have to learn, these different tools just to have the best chance of being successful, I think, at anything that they choose to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so valuable. Destiny, you've been able to really figure out so many things and so many situations that provide you the ability to just keep going. It doesn't mean everything's perfect every day. And it doesn't mean that it's easy every day, right? But I think, the nature of the sport is for there's so much accomplishment that comes out of this sport, and the ability for you to do what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Is there anything that either one of you want anybody here to know? Is there any particular, I don't know, favorite strategy or lesson that you've learned that's been helpful? Anything that either one of you can share from your own perspective?
Like, if you guys are like doing any sports, like, my favorite strategy is to just like think and talk your way through it, because that helps.
Yeah, that gives your mind a job to support your body in the moment, right? And sometimes thinking and talking, there might be some negative thoughts that get in there. Am I right?
Yeah.
But being able to acknowledge those and like continue to like acknowledge that's also helpful. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's such a good thing for you, Destiny, because that keeps your mind connected to your body as you're doing your skill, which is, giving you the control and the power to do what you know you could do.
Yes.
I like them all, but I find myself constantly, doing the goal beyond the goal, and, pushing that mentality. And it's, personally for me, not even as a gymnast mom, but just in my, career in life, that helps me a lot. I found that, I was like, oh yeah, if I really focus on this thing, then I'm not so stressed about this thing that I know I have to do, and I could just get it done. And I've been just like really focused on that lately, that strategy. And I mean, that is the real deal right there.
I love goal beyond the goal. Don't you too, Destiny?
Yes.
Goal beyond the goal.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say for Destiny, like competition is a goal beyond the goal, right? How many people are worried about competition? And then that can add different things in their A circle. But it's like, oh, but it's a goal beyond the goal. What do I need to focus on today to move me toward that?
Yeah.
That's just, I had a little girl the other day say, I used goal beyond the goal because I knew after I did my last 2 vaults, I wouldn't have to vault anymore today.
Yeah. Or I use like goal beyond the goal with her. Like, you know what, you've earned, you did so good at school this week. We got to make sure we get to 5 below this weekend, so you could pick out a couple of things at 5 below, just so when you go to the gym, because she had practiced yesterday because of Halloween, the weekend they closed. So they made up that time yesterday. And, I was like, just go and do what you need to do so we can, get to 5 below and all that. And I'm just finding with her, like, if I, like, before practice, I'm kind of telling her nothing that has to do with gymnastics, but just something that we're going to have, look forward to. Then she'll come back and be like, oh, yeah, I got everything done. Beam was good. Yeah, I just wanted to get it done. I got it done. The coach was surprised that I did all my assignments that quick. She's just because it's like you already know if you can do something, but then you don't get so distracted with worrying about it because you're thinking of that goal. And I'm telling you, if you don't aren't ready to apply any of these other strategies yet, that's one of the best ones, honestly.
Yeah, especially for gymnasts, because they have 5 minutes of competition. And so I used to always be like, Liv, what do you want to do after the meet? Go get ice cream, or like go to Five Below,
Yeah.
or, just have something, get a Leo, just have something beyond that. It can just move them through that, connected with the pressure taken off of that, and which is so beneficial in, like you said, in your career. When I use it in mine, I wouldn't get through the day if I didn't have goal beyond the goal to take the pressure off. Otherwise, like I would be like, oh my God, what if I do something wrong in this session? Or what if I'm not good? You just have to do your best and keep going and practice the strategies, and they're easy to rely on. It makes it
Right.
so much better.
Yes. No, all valuable information. That's why we stick it out, even if we're going through a good spell or a rough spell as far as practice and in the gym. I tell you that I'm like, I want to be as consistent as possible, because one, I don't want her to think we only talk to you if it's bad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and two, it's just I noticed a difference where in the past I wasn't as consistent with these sessions. It was more sporadic. Problem came up. I'd reach out to you. We'd schedule. But I said, this season, as she's going into the upper levels, I really want to, I'm going to try a season where we're pretty consistent and see if I see the difference. And I already have seen the difference. Honestly.
Yeah, it's just a lot less stressful, right, Destiny?
Yeah.
It's a
Just to
lot.
stay on top of it, just to keep on top of those of the transitions and layering it into. So we're keeping ahead of the ideas that you are going to be coming up against ahead of time, so you can mentally be prepared for those things. And
Right.
that's what I'm doing with my daughter. She's training at home. She's going to Utah. She's got to make the lineup in a brand new college, as a fourth year.
Wow.
And they expect her to be a leader. They tell her that. And so, I'm working with her, like, just focus on what you need today to do today to prepare you for competition, one step at a time. And it can take a lot of the pressure off of the idea of what you're supposed to be doing every minute of the day.
And I will say that it's a lot different putting with the feeling of like putting out a fire as opposed to you just feel prepared. So it has made this season compared to previous seasons just much less stressful. Like even as the parent and the gymnast, it's just much less stressful. Because like I said earlier, like my gymnast isn't the typical gymnast. She has a lot of fears, fears of the unknown. Once she does something a couple times, she's like, oh, okay, not bad. But just the fear of like the unknown is like her biggest fear. So she's definitely not for that gymnast. It's like, okay, I want to try it first. Okay, the coach says throw it, I'll throw it. That's not her. She's very calculated, thinks things through, has to understand it backwards, forwards, left and right. It has to completely make sense in her head. So oftentimes she's like the last person to get lots of things on her team, and that's okay. There's no, time, table or restraint, I should say. It's just, whenever you feel comfortable. I tell her all the time, you got to do this when you feel comfortable. But I will say that the sessions, I feel, have helped her to to push past fears that were holding her back before, because now she's able to have strategies and tools. And you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's what you told me when I was surprised at some of the things that you've learned this summer or allowed your coaches to teach you, is that you just were like, you know what, I was scared, but I just talked myself through it. And before, she wasn't necessarily doing that. She would just live in the fear of that moment.
Yeah. Wow. Such good awareness too. Stace, because then you can rely on that later.
Absolutely.
And she can use that moving forward. And so she has that available to her. And that's all the stuff that's happening mentally or unconsciously that is really valuable. And that's what I'm constantly helping people bring awareness to what they're doing well, so that they can use it more often and be consciously practicing it, and that can be so helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, you guys, well, thank you for coming on with me. And and you guys, you know, it's like every three weeks or so. It's not like you guys see me every week.
No,
And so it doesn't have to be like weekly or anything like that. But just staying on top of that
right.
a lot of my elites will see me every 3 weeks or every week for 15 minutes, or, you know, they'll just be just to keep them ahead of the game as far as the mentality can go. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's been great. And I feel like just the consistency keeps you accountable as well. And it helps, it reminds the gymnast, hey, wait, I have tools, because you know what, I'm gonna have to talk about this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
those tools, like, wait a minute. But it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. If I never have to, you know, be accountable for any of this again, you kind of do, it's easy to forget that the tools that you have. So
yeah,
like whether it's every other week or every month, just something that they know that's going to happen, and they can look, you start to look forward to it actually. That way you talk about how you've applied some of these tools.
yeah,
And it all I say is, you know, consistency, especially when they're still really young, till, you know, they kind of get it down a lot better. But, you know, like you said, even your daughter who's in college, you know, still, you know, they go through times that they need it, and it's okay. I think it's valuable that the tools are there, because they don't really have to suffer through it. You really don't.
It's so true. I always tell people it doesn't have to be a struggle to be successful.
It doesn't. Not when there's tools out there, and they're really, and they work, and they're, you know, just, I mean, it's, I cannot emphasize how much it's like night and day compared to, you know, when we first started. And what I hear when I hear the parents talk and the chatter I hear, it's just very different ways of viewing things, very different.
And we all want the same thing. We all want the athlete and your daughter to be able to be take care of herself
Yeah,
in every situation. You know, that's really what we're aligned in. And I think that you're right. It's not just about gymnastics, but it's about using the sport to create the practicing strategies so that when they're not doing the sport, they know that they have the resources they need.
exactly. Exactly.
And we'll remind them of that too. All
Yes.
right, you guys, well, thank you so much for joining me. I just think that people, you know, however they hear it and whatever they hear can be helpful coming from you guys, and I appreciate that. And then I think I'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. We'll talk next week. All right, you guys have a great week. Happy
Thank
Halloween.
you. Yeah, take care, you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.